Mr. Hardy, there's so much to talk about, but we're going to talk about the pre-planning stage. But what I would like for you to do in these opening minutes is share the transition from this amazing life of traveling the world, working with governments all over the world, bringing safety to the world and the hospital systems. I mean, you've done all of these amazing things and met with all of these powerful people, and you've taken this knowledge and this wisdom, and you've channeled it into, for lack of better words, into a movement, a concept, a thought, a way of making this world that we live in, even though it'll look much different, a place where we all have a chance to thrive and succeed and to love and just experience life, I believe, the way that we were meant to. But can you talk about that journey real quick, please?
Well, the journey begins with the understanding that the process is the solution, that we have to look at the process. And the first step of the process is talking about what it is that we are thinking about and getting people's ideas and bringing them together. So in the approach to anything that you're doing is a pre-planning process. It's not planning, it's not designing, it's not taking out a piece of paper and drawing pictures. It is simply discussion. We have to throw stuff out and talk about it and try to figure out what something is that we can all agree on. Now, that's an interesting concept itself, because to get to a point where everybody agrees on something, then everybody has to back up. It's not just you backing up a step. It's everybody in this circle of conversation needs to back up so that they can see what it is that exists, and then discuss where we've been, discuss where we are right now, and agree on that. There's no such thing as agreeing to disagree. That's some other discussion for some other kind of discussion. It's not even a discussion. It's not what we do. We back up and we realize that what we have to do is get to a point where we're all talking about the same thing. That's all. It's very, very simple on one hand. On the other hand, it's very difficult. It's not easy. And that's why in my book, I've written what the secret is, and it's called From To. And it's basically taking your word, which was the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Spectrum is a from to. And so what you have to do is you have to be looking at any issue like abortion, or whether you think that we have a good leader, or we should get another leader, or even you can even get down to which the wars that exist right now, or the mentality of the people who are in charge of these wars. You can do anything, but it's got to be on a sliding scale. It can't be on a, this is my opinion, and this is where I'm staying, and from now on I'm going to defend my opinion. Well, forget defending opinions, because the discussion has to be in the middle of the room. It has to be out there. It has to be something that we all talk about. So the bottom line is that pre-planning begins with a lot of talk. The approach is to back up and get everybody to back up to talk about the same thing. And that's my answer to your question.
Wow. Where did this book and everything that's gone into your book, and I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet, but that in itself seems like a lifelong journey of thought just to shape it and put it together, because it's not a simple task. And in that big of a vision, I don't believe comes to somebody in a dream. It comes in a series of dreams, trial and error, going down a path, hitting your face, falling off the cliff, getting back up, going back down it. Like, it comes from experience. But when did you first recognize the seed of this thought being planted in your life?
Well, the whole process is a solution really comes from my career, which as a healthcare planner in both United States and for hospital corporations like Columbia HCA, Kaiser, Catholic Healthcare West. I mean, the biggies, and the small little tiny little hospitals out in the rural areas that have an administrator who's also the director of nurse, who's also the person in charge of the emergency department. I mean, I've worked for the big ones and the little ones, but also in all over the world. I've worked in India, Pakistan, you name it, all these different places, and most importantly Myanmar, which we can get into. But that's my career. The concepts of care for peace began when I was a baby, and it began probably when I was 10 years old, when my parents drove me to Mexico, and I saw the squalor, the poverty, and it just blew me out. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And so until I was a hospital corpsman trainee in the United States Coast Guard, did I realize what care for peace is all about. It's something that just about every nurse I've met all over the world understands intuitively. They care for the peace of their patients, and they get a certain amount of peace for themselves. Care for peace is already in the human being. It's in our spirit. And I think that's that whole concept and how it developed for the last 60 years for me. It's something that gelled with me, and I share it with people. It worked in such a wonderful way that I translated it to something bigger than just the bigness that it already was, the bigness that was in the hearts of all these nurses, now mothers. And I started realizing, wait a minute, guys, men have this too. There's men caregivers. Some doctors are very good caregivers because they know the difference between clinical delivery and patient care. Two different things. And they really need to understand that. And a lot of doctors, sure, they understand it, but they're not good at it. Most nurses I know, are very good at the care process, and they use all sorts of things to make sure that they do the clinical delivery right. So that's really the essence of care for peace. Now, that came from life. Now, the second most important evolution occurred, and that's the idea that there is a first human evolution, and that one is over. And the idea that it ended sometime between the mid 50s and definitely the mid 60s, when mutually assured destruction occurred. All of a sudden we realized that population was a problem. The book Population Bomb came out. Militarization started getting really, really bad, not just the over militarization, but all over the world. We started recognizing China. The world had been explored, and the bottom line is humans controlled nature. And at that moment, sometime in the mid 60s, humans were the keystone animal. We were in charge of the environment. We were in charge of our relationships with each other. And what happened the mid 60s, then there's this space where we're flopping around. And this is a soul searching space. It's a space when we're flopping around like fish on a dock. It's the space between what was, which is the first human evolution, and what needs to be, which is the second human evolution. We can't even get to the second human evolution until we've done the pre-planning right, and then do the planning, and then we will get to that second human evolution, at least where we are ready to plan it. And that's the big difficult thing right now.
Let me ask you something. How does, and again, for some people this is science fiction, some people this is reality, but how does the merging with the machine that is becoming more readily available to us? There's Neuralink coming out. There's different types of wearables where we can now kind of integrate with AI. There's the chip technology is developed. It's been out. Like, we're starting to evolve where we are going to start merging with machine more than we have already. And let's not kid ourselves, people. We've already merged with machine.
Amen.
We've already, like, I know you want to go, that's evil, or that's, we did that a long time ago, and there's no stopping it. So how does merging with machine factor into the next evolution, or the delay of moving into the second evolution, or does it speed it up?
That's a good question. I'm going to have to think out loud here. So that's what's happening right now in my brain. The brain is going, oh my God, that's a good question. What am I going to do with it? But I guess my reaction is that I don't care. I think it's great. You know, I love this chat GPT stuff. The first thing I did when I started writing the book, and I started writing Second Human Evolution, and then I got finished with the book. I was already in the final throes of editing it with my editors, and I said, oh, I wonder what chat GPT will say if I say, what is the first human evolution? It was great. It came back with some real nonsense. Which is great, because if it came back with the exact words that I had written, I'd say, well, maybe I shouldn't even write the book. So it's informative. It's informative the way information is supposed to be. It's supposed to come into our brains and give us a chance to compare whatever it is that's coming in with what's already in there. And I feel sorry for the people who they treat their sensorium as something that's your brain, as something that you should just hold firm to, just like opinions. I love all this new technology that's coming out. And when I think of new technology, I'm thinking about the one that's floating around in the Ethernet. I'm not thinking about robots, and I'm not thinking about machine learning so that, the people, they can make cars without any humans. All right, that's not where my brain goes. Where my brain goes is, how can I help me, and how can it help the people around me, and how can it help the environment? Because the bottom line, it can definitely help. Because I just heard this morning that they're looking at statistics about how many people are throwing garbage away. Well, guess what? They can actually find out by collecting garbage in Yosemite, and that's a statistic. And those statistics get generated and processed through a computer, and then some chat GP is coming out and saying, you need to put more garbage cans in this one spot in Yosemite. It's, the information technology is being supported by the AI. By the way, I went out and bought a whole bunch of AI stock. I just, I am now, it's like 25% of our portfolio, because I believe in it. I believe that it's going to help us.
Yeah. I'll be honest, and a lot of it was to do with religious upbringing and things that I believed even as an evangelist, but then my shifting, I started to kind of see things differently, actually. But one of the things that I had some hesitancy towards was the metaverse, because the first movie I saw when I was a kid was The Lawnmower Man. And when I saw the Terminator, I, in my 7-year-old body, go, that shit's gonna really happen. Like, this is real. Right. So that, and then prophecy, like biblical prophecy, which I was always obsessed with, and so like I made myself believe a certain way for whatever reasons, but they weren't really my own beliefs. So then I think I told you about my partner Jessica and the educational technology that she has that's going into the metaverse. So exciting. But when I first put on the headset to go explore, I got sick. I'm like, this is a lot. I went back, waited a few days, went back, and I spent about 4 hours of time. And all of a sudden the light bulbs are going off everywhere of the possibilities, and also the ways that it can benefit kids with special needs, and getting to see Jessica's technology work in action. I'm like, if I would have had this when I was in school, I probably would have become a professor, Like I would probably have a
Yeah.
college degree. I probably would have not thought I was stupid for the first 20 years of my life. Like there's so many amazing benefits. And yet when I talk to people, Jeff, there's people that have so much fear of it being like a soul trap, or somehow that my soul is going to get lost in this other world and I'm never going to come out. And there's like a legitimate fear where people won't even look to it. Let me ask you, when you hear the word useless eater and you hear words like that coming from the World Economic Forum as they talk about the advancements of humans, is it the people that are saying, I don't want to progress, I don't want to evolve? Are those the people that are going to be left behind and be considered useless eaters?
Oh, it's a good question. I look at the path that's ahead, and the path that's ahead is not just for me, it's for everybody. So we're all going to walk down the path. And when I see the picture of Martin Luther King walking across the bridge in Selma, Alabama, I look at all those people behind him and around them. And those were different people, and they were thinking about all different things. I don't think about the people who are beside me or behind me even. I think about where I'm going and if I'm in the right direction. Now, is that the right answer? No, I think that the right answer is probably, yeah, we'll probably leave a lot of people behind. And we'll probably have a whole bunch of people, the Luddites, whatever you want to call them, become computer Amish. Or, they'll be, I mean, people have been left behind for a long time. And that's just going to happen, and I'm not worried about it at all. I vote that we help those people, because the Amish right now, if they get really sick, they go to a hospital. So we're going to help those people. We're going to help everybody. It's just I don't worry about that, because there's a natural urge to deny reality. And people who are not accustomed to allowing new information to come into their sensorium so that it can get squished and worked around with all that's already there, then, there's not a lot I can do for those people. I can tell the educators of the world that you got to start thinking and start teaching people how to think. Because if people know how to think, then they'll be able to use that sensorium for what its purpose is, which is get all that information and then start enjoying get that information. And look at the computer. You can now learn how you want to learn. You can say, Google, what's the square root of the hypotenuse, or whatever you want, and Google will come back. You don't have look at the lawyers now who don't even have to read all those books that are on the posters behind their desk. They don't have to read them anymore. They can just use Google. They can go to it. You can learn through these different paths, and I believe in that path. I really do. And the people who don't know how to walk that path, I want to make sure they don't fall off the path if they're on it, but I certainly am not going to spend any time looking at them. However, I'm going to listen to them. Very important. It's like going into a new country, and I've done this every country I've gone into. The first month, if not longer, is listening and asking, how can I help and how high? And I can't tell you that every single time I ask that question, those questions, how can I help and how high, I get an answer that I wasn't expecting every single time, because what they're thinking about, I've got to back up and listen to what they're thinking about and say, okay, now how can we do this together? It's the old back up thing. So I've watched people in the other countries backing up, and then we have a conversation and we talk about the issues, and and so here's a country where I'm going to build a hospital. Seriously, this happened in Myanmar. I was invited to go over there and help them build the hospital, design and build the hospital. I went over there, I took a look at the whole country, not driving all over the place, just going to a couple of rural villages. These people don't need any hospital. They don't even know what to do with the hospitals that they've got. They need rural health care, and they need a communication between those clinics. And so I ended up going out to one and talking to the people in the village. How can I help and how high? Guess what? Nobody said they need a hospital. they said, oh, well, we need education tools like what you guys have, like computers. We need a video camera. We need, what are the projectors and screens and things like that. And oh, by the way, yeah, it would really be nice because we don't have roads. It'd be nice to have some kind of a mobile van so that we can drive the doctors and the nurses out to the outlying village and take care of the patients. Guess what? We gave them a van. We gave them the equipment. I went over there to build a hospital. What? It's like you have to listen. And all the people that you think might want to do something else and not pay attention to what you're doing, I'm getting back to your question. They're still listening. They're still listening. The Amish that have to go to a hospital, that's because they're listening. They know that there's a hospital out there in case there's a problem. They can drive their horse-drawn carriages right down the main highway because they do that to the hospital. They leave their wooden buildings and their pump water systems that they have in their yards, and that's what they do. And I will tell you, I met some of these people in Pennsylvania, and they're the most wonderful people in the world. It's just unbelievable that good people are everywhere, and there's nobody who's thumbing their nose at you. Not one. So I don't know.
You've traveled the world. You've met people from every corner of the world. You've met people from all walks of life, as far as from rich to poor. So you're pretty qualified to be able to answer this question, probably more so than most people that would throw an opinion at this. But what would you say would be the one thing that could bring the world together to have that conversation that would get us all to listen to each other?
Talk.
Way to simplify that answer.
I mean, my dad, who he was a maternal and child health data management teacher at the University of Hawaii, and he ended up
on a business card. That's a
it's a very long one. And the thing is, he got found out because he was in Hawaii, and the governor ended up linking him up with Region 9, which is in charge of the whole Pacific, everything from the east to the west of the patient. Region 9 is a world item. And so my dad ended up going to Micronesia, Polynesia, you name it. But one of the things that stuck in me when he got back, telling me about the villages on small little islands, or in Thailand where there's a bunch of Muslims and a bunch of Christians, he talked about the coconut wireless. The coconut wireless is the communication method that the Muslims and the Catholic women would use to share information. They'd share. The Muslim women were not allowed to be educated, so guess what? They got educated. It's like what I said before. Everybody can learn the way they want. And I think most people, they'll ask questions. Questions are so important. One of my favorite expressions that I made up, and I hope other people made it up too, it's very simple. Don't assume, ask questions. Because the biggest problem that I have with family members and with friends is the assumptions are just way out there. And all you have to do is ask the question, well, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Well, so I don't know. Talk, please. Talk. Listen, I think what you're doing is absolutely what we need to do. I mean, where did this whole podcast thing come from? And why is it so popular now? It's because people can choose to listen to you, and then they can go to another podcast and listen to another one. But they're going to come to you now that you and I have been on the same podcast. So, and so, hey, listen to this one. Hey, listen to this one. It's the talk. That's how you can offer people the opportunity to listen. Not get them to listen. You don't get anybody to listen. You couldn't get me to listen the whole time I went to school.
That's true. Same here. Same here. I'm guilty of that. I inspire, because it's easy to talk, because everyone talks on social media. They share their opinions and their thoughts, and they're what they believe to be absolutely true. And there's a lot of that, but there's not a lot of listening. And one of the things I've been talking, I think I shared this with you yesterday, maybe, I don't remember. But right now, the way the algorithms are set up, it seems to favor people that niche out. When I say niche out, I mean they've niched their service or what they talk about down to like one thing, and then they just hammer the heck out of that one thing over and over and over again. That's all they ever post about. That's all they ever talk about on their podcast and their broadcast. And right now, the algorithms support that. It seems to, because those are the people with the larger accounts. But I'm watching it going, this can't be sustainable. Like, this isn't, first of all, it's not interesting. I know that we have other sides of ourselves. Like, I would love to see more people show different sides of themselves. Where am I going with this point? Oh my God, this happened to me yesterday too. You think I'd been drinking? I don't. Dad, go. No, I did it again. Help me, Lord. I gotta tell you, that is so embarrassing when it happens, and I am not gonna edit it out, because this is a real thing that happens with me, and I can't do anything about it. Anyway, freaking hey. I was gonna make a good point, but it clearly doesn't matter now.
Well, I think that it was connected a little bit to the last issue that we were talking about, which is, how do you get the people to listen? And what you're talking about is where somebody gets into a niche that I'm a plumber, and so I only talk about plumbing, and I'm doing plumbing and plumbing and plumbing, and other stuff doesn't come into my realm. And I don't know if that's what you were getting at, but when I heard you use the word niche, that's that's where we get. So go ahead, finish what your thought is.
You just saved me. This is great. Well, but it's uninteresting, and you don't really get to know who people are that way. And so what it does is it's only rewarding opinions, not conversation. So we're not geared, and we're conditioning and training or programming ourselves every day to just share the opinions about the same shit over and over and over again. And all we end up really doing is we're just spewing talking points that we've heard from somewhere else. That's what it's turned into. That's got to stop, because this culture has to stop. So what I've decided to do, because I'm trying to figure out, I want to be popular. I want to be famous, but I want to be famous for the right reasons. I'm not being a piece of crap, or I want to be famous so I can have the power to go help the people I want to help, so I can give a voice to the people I want to have a voice. And so but what I'm trying to do, I've been trying to figure out, how can I stand out on social media, but not get into this being in a niche or taking a stand and saying I'm this religion, or I'm this sexuality, or I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm an independent, without doing any of that. And I've trying to find this way, and I'm thinking that it's starting to work, and I don't know why, but there's something beautiful about not knowing anything and just being curious and letting that be the fuel. Because what I'm seeing on social media, my ex Twitter account specifically, is that now people are having conversations that they weren't normally having with people they would not normally have a conversation with. And I hope that I can inspire more of that, because you're talking about pre-planning, and you're talking about us getting to have the same conversation. So I don't see us even having a conversation as a whole right now. So how do we is it what I just talked about, or is there a different strategy where we can get the world ready to have the same conversation so they can listen with the same set of ears?
Well, very good question. I got a simple answer right away, and that is we've got to be using the same tools. And what that means is when we talk, when we speak, we've got to have tools that aren't what's your opinion, but more what do you think about? Because the difference between this is my opinion and the question, what do you think? What do you think about the population problem and the relationship between all these migrations of men from northern Africa and the abortion issue? What where are we at? Where are we at? Can we discuss the population situation in the world? Can we talk about the fact that the supply and demand has a limit based on what the earth can produce? So we have to have the right questions. And so that would be the second part. And we have to have an education system that is a global education system. That's the third point. And it's not Common Core, by the way. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something that is universal discussion points. And I think that that includes backing way back and having a discussion with the people who are discussing this in the world, which aren't necessarily the leaders, but hopefully they're the people that the leaders listen to. How do we set up an education system where there is interaction between the people, not just leader driven classes, but interactive, so that you get people involved? Because number 4 is involvement. You have to have people involved. And that way you inspire the education process that is the solution.
I love it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Where we had left off, we've heard the words population control a few different times. And boy, that just, I want to get clarification on that as we wrapped up this interview. But I will tell you this, Jeff and I have plenty of conversations coming ahead, because there is so much meat to what he's wanting to do. And I really want to take a further deep dive. But this first broadcast is really going to just be an introductory, I think, to several different things and conversations that we have together. So Mark, Jeff, I'm sorry. I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I want to ask you something about this, because another subject that I think that you're qualified to discuss is population control, not just from your experience with hospitals, but you've traveled the world, you've seen every little corner and village and everything else. So when you talk about population control, the population issues that we have, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. Another simple answer. First of all, I draw attention to anybody who has a computer to the Sustainability Millennium Goals, MSG or SMG, which came from the World Health Organization. There are 17 categories, like environment and solar and things like that, but not one of them is about population, which might have been an oversight. I have no idea. And this is not a criticism about the Millennium Sustainability Goals at all, because I highly support the move. It does amaze me that it isn't number 1, in fact. But I don't use the word population control. I know I say the words population control. I look at population continuity. And I use the words population continuity because when I'm talking to those folks in the villages, the first thing that they think is exactly the same thing that people think in in my neighborhood and the people in the schools that I visit. They say, well, you aren't going to control me. You're not going to tell me what to do. Control is just not the right word. And the whole concept of population control has been relegated to Planned Parenthood. I mean, it's in the same context. I say population continuity, because what that means is that gives you the opportunity to do your bit. And in the book, I talk about what my bit was. My bit was, I'm going to replicate myself. My wife is going to replicate herself. We had 2 kids, and I got fixed. So population continuity is something that everybody can get involved in. And people who already have 8, 9, and 10 kids, I'm not gonna chide them. Heck, my parents-in-law, they had 7 kids, two of which were adopted, but it doesn't matter. I love these people, and I love my brothers and sisters-in-law. I mean, it's really wonderful. I'm not going to chide people who already have, and I also am not going to go chide the people in Mali who, by the way, on a per head basis, have more children than any other country in the planet. Okay, there's people who have 11 kids and 12 kids and 13 kids. I'm not going to chide them either, because that's their social security. That way, when you get older, at least you have some food on the table, because out of the 11 kids out there, maybe you'll get a bite. And it's not funny. I've seen it. So I think we have to start talking population continuity, because that's something that everybody who backs up and everybody who is talking about this world over, either poor in developed countries, underdeveloped countries, they can all use the same word without thinking that we're trying to stick our arms in and tell you what to do.
Well, there's a belief that, like the Georgia Guidestones, where it talks about keeping the population at 500 million, and we're at 8 billion now. So there's a big belief in the conspiracy world that the elites want a lot of people dead, just to put it plainly. What do you have to say to that?
Wow, there's all sorts of stuff. I loved when all the conspiracy theories came out during Trump's epoch, whatever you call it. Great conspiracy theories. I just loved it. I thought about throwing in a few myself just for fun. I can't deal with those people. I had a podcast a few weeks ago. I think I told you yesterday. And some guy was just really into where we're at in relation to the expiration of humans. What do you call it? The sixth
Singularity?
What is it?
You talking about the singularity?
No, it's the extinction. It's the sixth extinction, and that humans will be involved in the extinction. I said, well, you can sit around and talk about that all you want. I'm trying to think about what that next step is, and it's got to be the next step. That's got to be a practical next step, and frankly, it's got to be a next step that I think is doable from what's already happening. Like this whole, I don't think that human nature should be trying to reinvent itself. That's the reason why when I met all these nurses, I realized care for peace is already here. Good Lord. It's already here. There's more people on this planet. I personally know, no, that's not fair. I don't know everybody on the planet, but who understand what it means to care for peace. And it's just, you don't have to teach care for peace. They understand it. Now, yes, in the book, I take apart the concepts of care and peace. Like care I already shared with you, you have to realize that it's different than clinical delivery. So healthcare institutions are not really healthcare institutions, they're health clinical delivery institutions. And it's, okay, so you already know that. Okay, but when it comes to peace, we got to define it as a dynamic word. First of all, the goal is for peace to be a feeling, because you already got it there as a feeling. You just have to ignite it and inspire it. Okay. But peace is not what you get after a war. It is not the time between wars, nor is it what you get when you sit on top of a mountain, cross your legs and sing, oh, while the people in the villages down below are suffering and having a problem. The beauty of care for peace is it's dynamic. It's a dynamic peace that you will have and I have every time I'm caring for you. I'm caring for other people. It's a dynamic that we share. So peace has to be a dynamic word. It can no longer be a space. That idea about a care being after a war. Sure, look at Reconstruction in America. Was that peaceful? No. What about the Reign of Terror in France? No. Look at World War One. What happened after World War One? That wasn't peaceful. That's why World War II began. It's because there's so many people who were being held down by the thumb of martial law and countries that were just, hey, you got to pay us back, Germany. This is it. You guys were all bad. So, and that's not just why we got Hitler. That's another discussion entirely, because I truly believe that the head of state evolves. There's a following already. And talking about Trump, I'll talk to Trump about Trump anytime, but I don't talk about Trump because I hate him. I don't hate him. I love Trump. And I think that we can love everybody by looking at what it is that these people that seem to be so off base, so just gone from our spectrum, that there's a reason for that to exist. Then including the conspiracy theories and all the stuff that people believe. Have I gone off subject? I think I have.
It doesn't matter. This is really, I don't do focused subjects very rarely. I like conversation, and this is really a good time to wind it down. Because I want to set this up for more conversations. You are so interesting. Your perspective on the world and life and what's possible, where we're going. It's all interesting to me, especially because you've done so much of what I want to do. So I'm truly honored to have your time. I would love for you, Mr. Hardy, to please share any last words you may have, and then also plug, your website where people can follow you. The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, first I'll do this is the book, To Care for Peace.
Love the logo.
And it's very simple. And if you do nothing else but read the back blurb, it says it all. So I highly recommend getting the book just to read the back blurb. But I think that the book title is To Care for Peace, a Global Mandate to Secure the Second Human Evolution in Perpetuity. And then the quote that's underneath that is, the process is the solution. And what I say to anybody who's listening, start the process, or fairly, I should say, keep the process going, because you've already started. But grab some of these words and start using them. Make these words your own. The first human evolution is over. Get that one and think about that and say, well, there were other things that happened at the end of the first human evolution, like the whole peace movement, for instance. Oh, great. I didn't write that book. I didn't write that in the book. So, come up with other things, examples that happened during that whole first human evolution that started 2.5 million years ago. Wow, it ended in the mid-60s. We got to get that concept across to everybody in the world. And I do mean everybody, because I have talked to people about this in Myanmar, in the rural, because I get people together wherever I am. You get a little circle of people sitting on the floor, in a Buddhist monastery, because it was the only place that had a roof on it in case it rained. So, and I'd say, hey, does anybody know what human evolution is all about? And I'd get some answers, because the first thing I want to know is if they know what we're talking about. If we say evolution, are they all so ingrained in the, that the Bible is sacrosanct, and that, what do they call it? It's not the evolution, but it's that other thing that they talk talk about, and most of the time there aren't. Most of the time these people in these meetings have already been in school. They understand evolution. I say, great. Well, do you realize that there was a first human evolution that had ended? Oh. So, which is very interesting, because in Myanmar, some of the people said, well, it ended for us during the Saffron Revolution. And that was in 1988. And I was thinking, wait a minute, that's interesting. This revolution that began because the monks throughout the country of Burma at the time were not happy with the charge of oil, the cost of oil, cooking oil. This country gets cold. This country also needs cooking oil. So they started what they called the Saffron Revolution, because the saffron was the color of their robes. And that became, and I suddenly realized, wait a minute, for different countries and for different people, the first human evolution didn't end in the mid-60s. Wow, these people just educated me to something. It ended for them in 1988, but they put their finger on where they thought it would ended, and they got the idea of the suspended human evolution that we're in, because that country, especially now, was in turmoil, and the world for them was in turmoil. Wow, the suspended human evolution. What a concept. So what I say to your folks is, start using the words, put it into your own words. Yeah, I don't have to quote me. I don't care. I'm sitting by the proverbial exit. I'm 75 years old. So, just take it away. Take it away, please.
Oh, Jeff Hardy, you're a blessing, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. World Mayor.
Talk to you soon.